Hey friends, Dory here for Gamereactor, reporting from Call of Duty XP 2016, and this is the interview that I have been waiting for on the announcement that everybody's been waiting for. Finally, the multiplayer for Infinite Warfare is out there. There's a lot of stuff to get through. Let's start with the highlights and then I'll pick into it.
Okay, so Call of Duty multiplayer, Infinite Warfare. The first thing we're excited to introduce is combat rigs. This represents the core of our multiplayer experience. What we've done is when we set off to create this game, we wanted to concentrate on the various playstyles that we find amongst Call of Duty players and the things that we see repeated amongst them. So we went off and created combat rigs as a kind of container for what we have as combat rig abilities and combat rig weapons, as well as combat rig traits. So around each playstyle, we've kind of gathered just the different parts that make up that combat rig, the fiction being that you're the person wearing that suit. And I'll give you an example, which is, for example, the FTL, which is my favorite, is the more techie, more guerrilla-style warfare playstyle. And his combat abilities are centered around like getting in quickly to action and then getting out quickly and kind of evade and attack from different angles. For example, one of his combat abilities is the ability to teleport over a short distance. We still want to keep you in frame, so it's fairly short, but it's more about surprising your opponent by a quick change of direction. On the combat trait side, on the combat rigs trait side, we have some more. Think of them more as like supercharged perks that are persistent throughout the match. And for example, he has one where on kills, enemies will drop little bags that help his super recharge faster. So if you combine that with the FTL jump, you'll be able to jump maybe once or twice more a match. A different playstyle that we've represented is the more stealthy. People want to play as snipers. We have a combat rig that's called the Phantom. You'll see him. He's got a kind of futuristic ghillie appearance to him. His kind of combat rig weapon is the ballista railgun. And it's like a sniper rifle, and when you hit somebody, it'll actually impale them and kind of drag them to the wall and pin them to the wall. In the trait side, he has heightened senses that will tell somebody. He has a choice where if somebody's aiming at you, it'll tell you, hey, somebody's aiming at you, by flashing the screen. He also has a special one which puts a like small riot shield on the back of his back to kind of, if he's camping and kind of protect him, will give him a half second of protection. On the combat ability side, he's got active camo. All the kind of things that will help reinforce the playstyle of the people who want to play that. And everything's kind of, we spend an inordinate amount of time to kind of balance. So if you have something that's more lethal, we're going to let you get it slightly less often. If it's something that's more of a utility, then you'll get it 2, 3, 4 times a matches as opposed to just the 1 or 2.
And like you said, we have 6 rigs, all right? And we have, 3 abilities for each, and then 3 perks. So we're talking about around 50 different combinations.
Exactly, yeah. And it's just what we wanted to do is, we can say that 30% of our population is mobile mid-ranger and they use the warfighter, but not everyone's going to fit exactly in that neat little box. So that's why with the traits and the combat rig abilities, you kind of have a little bit of blurred lines where if you're defensive but you like to attack occasionally, then you could pick the Merc class where he can equip bull charge, and a few times a match he pulls out a shield, starts picking up momentum and losing the ability to turn. If he hits anyone, he smacks into them and they go flying. And it's just kind of a bull moment where you've been playing defensive, but now you're going to switch to attack for a second.
I actually had a lot of fun with that myself during my hands-on.
Yeah. I actually like that one because even if I don't hit the guy, there's still that rising tension as you're almost about to hit him.
Now, the traversal system in the Call of Duty games has been evolving for the past 2 entries. We have kind of jetpack jump, you have wall running and stuff like that. What is the more base of your traversal system? Is it more Black Ops 3 or Advanced Warfare?
So we started off with within our engine and our movement set. And then we went and looked at everything that everybody was doing. We went to talk to the tryout guys, find out what they were doing with their movement, find out how they did it, and all the all the little pieces and knobs that you tweak to get to that. We ended up something where we got close to Black Ops 3, but there's a few things where we dialed down a little bit. So for example, our double jump is just a tiny little bit. You're talking single percentage points slower, just because we felt that kept you more in frame. and our map design lent itself more towards that kind of lower height engagements. And this all works like hand in hand with the maps. Like anytime you tweak anything movement related, it really has to be reflected in the map design, or else you're just going to end up with this dissonance that's going to happen. So for example, on our map design side, we try, one of the rules we have is to try very hard not to have any wall runs that are, facing a doorway, so that if somebody's wall running, they don't have a too steep of an angle when they're attacking. So the two really just work hand in hand. And when we looked at the Black Ops 3 system, it was one of the best out there. It's smooth, it feels good, etc. So we just kind of approached it as like, hey, we still need to put our own take on this, so that the best compliment I think I heard from user testing was somebody saying it felt like the love child of Modern Warfare and Black Ops 3, which they're both great games, so we take that as a compliment.
Now you mentioned the map design there. You're doing a lot of like lane-based kind of design. Yeah. Can you talk about that, and also some of the maps that you showed off here at the XP?
Sure. So here you should have seen a map called Throwback, which was the 1950s style museum town with in an O'Neill cylinder, which is kind of the space station that goes circular with farmland on it. That's a strong 3-lane map with a good center for any objective-based game modes like domination, etc. You should have also played Proto, which also has a kind of 3-lane design, but one of them is more on the outside with a risky wall run. We also have basically a variety of maps. Like when we went off to design them, we didn't just want 3-lane maps. We wanted to give people, an opportunity to play different styles. So we have, today people played Frontier, which is kind of really close quarters. It's got an underpath, which kind of cuts through the map. And just really fast-paced action with, shotguns, SMGs, and one long corridor for the people who want to do the longer range engagements. But the main idea was just we wanted variety, because as you play these maps, hours and hours and hours and hours, you want that kind of variety and that freshness to come back.
Now, I want to touch a little bit on the weapons front, of course.
Yeah.
What is the design philosophy, seeing as we're way out into the future? Yeah. What sort of weapons are we going to be using here?
So we took off, trying to imagine and reading up a lot on research papers and DARPA and any futurologists like Elon Musk, and want to talk about the future and things, and kind of looking into what technology would look like in a few hundred years, but still stay true. So we still wanted the guns, like overall they needed to still feel good, they need to feel like Call of Duty weapons. We didn't want to go full energy, because we feel like ballistic still is going to be the primary mainstay. And even on the energy side, it was important to us to not go into a kind of pew that direction.
You want to have the feedback.
Yeah, exactly. So it's about like the feedback on the gun, the muzzle flash, the sound of it, the little details of just the ERAD, for example. It's an SMG that pops open and then you pull out the battery pack and kind of ram one back in, because a lot of the requirements around guns and everything that we researched doesn't predict like infinite energy guns or anything like that. So we still wanted to have everything there, and then there's some variations where attachments that are energy based are slightly different. So for example, instead of fast mags, you might have an attachment on the energy guns that recharges slowly your magazine, and that's where we kind of want to differentiate them, still make them feel like Call of Duty weapons. We want to stay grounded, we want to make them feel impactful, but for each gun to have its own personality, so that when you pick up an energy-based, LMG, it still has a nice, satisfying kick to it, but its own, take on it versus the ballistic version that you'll also have.
There's also one thing that I noticed. I believe it was an SMG that I was rocking, and then holding in a triangle, turned it into an akimbo pistols. Yeah. So, are we going to be seeing a lot of those types of things as well?
Yeah. So we took a few weapons and we wanted to push them further, like technically in terms of animation and rigging, and we wanted to see what we could achieve. And it's especially interesting to think about these situations where you have maps that are mid-range with a couple of shorter corridors and close quarter combat areas, and we really like the idea of being able to switch up. So for example, the gun you're talking about is the Type 2, and as an assault rifle, it kind of has a mid-range. It's fast firing but not super heavy damage, and then if you press triangle and rip it into two, and then you got your two fast firing SMGs. We also have the EBR 800, which is a sniper rifle, energy based, and then if you hit triangle, he'll actually fold down the scope and it turns into an AR. And those ones have just been really fun because just that ability to switch up on the fly, like what decision process you're going to make, is just makes for a really fun game.
Another thing that you're introducing is crafting, and there were audible gasps in the auditorium when that was announced during the keynote. What is that and how does that work?
So you'll accumulate currency as you're playing. It's called salvage, and it's an in-game currency that you accumulate just by playing the game. So for each base weapon, we have an extra 4 versions of it. So you have, let's say you take your Type 2 assault rifle that splits into 2, you're now going to have the base version, which you unlock just by playing the game and reaching level 12. And then you have variants which you'll get either through the mission team rewards, which is our meta game, or by you can acquire, if you have enough salvage, you can actually just craft the version that you want. So each of these variants, we have a common, a rare, a legendary, and an epic version, and each one of them has what we call gun perks. So the common version has 1 gun perk, the rare has 2, and then the epic will have something cool on it. Now the biggest concern when we were making this is game balance. And making sure that, having one of these guns is not a requirement. The base version is just as good. So what we do with the gun perks is we add a lot of interesting variation in behavior. So if you take the Volk assault rifle, the base version is full auto, but if you get the gun perk, the common version, its gun perk turns it into a single fire heavy damage weapon. So it's kind of about changing the personality of the guns. They have names. We have guns like the Bozuzoku that just, make for interesting, which that one reverses where the headshot damage, it's further lower down the body. And just kind of changing up the behavior. And especially we even have one for the people who like to have a challenge called the Masochist, that when you shoot, it actually takes away from your own health as well.
Now, are these weapons only available through crafting, or...?
You'll get them as mission team rewards, and you'll get them through playing the game constantly. You'll get them through drops. They're still going to be a fairly rare occurrence. And then we have the in-game salvage that, like I said, you can spend on building the weapon that you want.
Tell me a little bit more about mission teams.
So mission teams is kind of our metagame wrapper, and we want to use it to kind of bring people into the game and onboard them. So we're going to have 3 mission teams at launch that basically each one has its own commander who has a different personality. You'll see they're wearing a different combat rig. You'll see a face and a voice and a personality that gets introduced to you, and then that person gives you missions, which are basically small challenges to achieve during gameplay. So as you start off, to onboard people, we're going to say like, hey, get 3 kills. And if you get 3, in that one match, you get a little, reward. And then as you progress through, you'll unlock mission teams that get more and more complicated. So we also want to try and encourage people to play objective-based game modes and explore different game modes rather than just staying in TDM. So you'll have ones which are, hey, go get cap a couple dom points in a dom match. Then you'll also have way further down the line for the more hardcore. You might have killed somebody in the air whilst you're also in the air, and kind of the more harder to achieve ones.
Now, a large part of Call of Duty XP is, of course, esports.
Yes.
Are you talking anything about the esports aspect of the game yet?
So we don't have any details to share right now. Right now we're going through the process of, we invite pro players from the US and the EU to come over to the studio to play the game, give us their feedback on the game, talk about how Black Ops 3 is doing and all the different esports aspects that affect them in their lives, and just kind of trying to get good feedback and a good plan for what we're going to do.
Okay. And another announcement here at the keynote was, of course, that there's a beta coming. What are the details on that?
So I'm not quite sure on the territory, but it's basically if you pre-order, then you'll be able to access the beta on October the 14th.
And that's on consoles exclusively?
Correct, yeah. It starts off on PS4.
And for all those out there, when exactly is the game launching?
The game is launching November 4th, and we look forward to seeing you online.
Okay, thank you so much for your time.
Nice, thank you.
Thank you.